What's good, everyone? This your main correspondent, Alan Taylor, and I'm back in the broadcast room. So we're on here with the Lapeef Network and things like that, and they're coming with a conversation here about, the ladies were on there saying like, well, not all, but talking about how grandmothers had a miserable life back in the day and stuff like that, and were trapped in marriages. So we're gonna go here now and we're gonna break this down. We're gonna see what's going on. Quarters, nickels, and dimes, people.
But this is what I'm confused about, right? So everybody loves to talk about back in the day, it was a higher marriage rate, right? That's what the parents expected of that man to do. When he wanted to take her out on a date, they expected him to show up and be able to pay for that date. They expected him to open the door. It was normal for a man to show up to take you on a first date with flowers. It was normal for you to expect the man to pay all your bills. It was normal. These were things. Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. There was nothing normal about paying somebody bills just from GT.
I'm saying like to not dating. No. I'm saying once you get into the marriage and into the whatever, like certain things were expected, right? I'm talking like broad spectrum. When people are talking about their expectations, when you are on that first date, if you hear something come out of that woman's mouth several times that doesn't align with what you're willing to do, instead of telling her, we'll lower it or change it, or that's why you're not married. If you know you can't do it, just walk away.
Nope, stop it. Yeah, we're going here now. That's not how it worked. That's not how it worked. Talking about expectations on back in the day, women didn't have all these delusional ass dreams about a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? If they grew up in two-parent households and stuff like that, the father expected the young man to come to the door with the flowers and the candy and the traditional chivalry situation. Also, the daughter was taught how to carry herself like a lady. She didn't dress a certain type of way. It was certain type of things that she wore, things like that. It was certain ways that she spoke to people and also spoke to him. It's just off, respect for the next human being, just him being a human being first, then a man. It was certain things that, women actually knew that to expect and not to expect. And the delusion that these chicks have nowadays is out the damn door. And then they expect, normal minded men with logical common sense to, feed up to these expectations. Now, what SM said at first, he was going there with it. She had to clear it up. What's this? Miss B over there, she had to clear it up real quick because no, I'm not talking about just dating. I'm talking about in a marriage. Now, these chicks out here nowadays want you to show up and do husband shit in a fucking date. Come on now. We know what's going on out here.
What time frame are you referring to when you talking about for a man to come in and provide? Are you talking about the back in the days?
No. See, I'm asking Laisha. No, so the problem with what Laisha said about that time period, right?
Yeah, what time period was that?
She's talking about the early 60s or whatever when she talked about courting back then.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Hold on, wait, Bruce, hold on. So the problem with that assumption, right, is that men was definitely able to be themselves back then because every woman wasn't getting an expensive date. A lot of the times the date was just going up to the creek and looking at the moon or watching the sunrise or
watching the sunrise or it wasn't no going to Mastro's eating a $400 plate of food. Come on now.
Walk in the park or a quick, like they weren't when you went to the girl if you asked your grandfather what was his him and his wife first date, they would tell you it was probably more than likely something simple. It wasn't what is expected today, where you're expected to go all out. A man was able to go up to a woman and be himself.
You missed it.
It was more transactional.
You missed one thing. You missed the critical part. When she stated that back in those days in the 1960s, it was expected for the man to come in and provide. Correct, Laisha, right?
Yeah.
She didn't compensate for the type of women those women were back then.
True that.
It don't even matter.
Those women,
it do matter. It do matter. That's the whole point that Bruiser talking about. It was a whole different mindset of a chick back then. You know what I'm saying? A lady, basically. You know what I'm saying? And a man. The whole setup was totally different. You know what I'm saying? Like SM said, though, I definitely agree with his point as well on that fact before he talking about it didn't matter. Yes, the man, you know, most dates were not all these extravagant fucking dates. You went to the movies or something like that, chilled out, shared a popcorn, low key may have shared a soda or something like that. And you know, and I've talked to my elders about what they used to do when they went on dates and things like that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get it. Everybody wants to sit around here with maybe they lied to you, this and that. I can get where y'all come from because you're sick in the brains. But back then, most people wasn't just, you know what I'm saying, as debaucherous as we are today. You know, not just in general.
Did matter.
I mean, it don't matter in regards to courting because, like, obviously, men and women are different today. I wasn't even talking about the part, like, the whole provide. There was never no expectation that a man had to provide upon courting. That was never an expectation.
No, I'm not
When he's
talking
saying
about that.
the children.
What I'm saying is,
After you got in the, once you got her in a
She was a
relationship and a
virgin.
marriage, there was an expectation
That's
of
why the
providing.
expectation.
Nah, I
But-
got cap on
No.
that.
Courting, going on
no,
a
that's
date,
not true.
I got
No,
There
cap
was
cap
an
on
no,
that.
you was not
expectation
expected
that
to-
the man was supposed to be provider and protector.
Yes.
This stuff fell apart
yes, but
whenever,
not in a not
whenever
during
women
the
got the
courting
right
phase.
to open
No,
up their
in the
own bank
courting
accounts.
phase.
Okay, not doing the courting phase. Let's clear this up. Yes, of course, not doing the courting phase. But if she had a legitimate father or brothers or something like that at the house that can peep out the man, you know, and talk to the young man, stuff like that. Yes, the father's going to ask the legitimate questions. You know, what do you do? What's your plans for the future? Things like that. That's where the tangibles come in at of where he's going to be able to provide and protect.
So what the French toast is there to think about?
You know, before the father lets his daughter go out on dates and all this other type of stuff with said young man. That's where the information and the knowledge is going to come in to where the father can analyze this young man and make sure that he's going to be viable or a suitable candidate to marry his daughter and, you know, be able to protect and provide and have a stable household and build a family to, you know, also offset his legacy and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? To build a community which family builds communities. So, you know.
No, he wasn't.
Excuse
man.
me, from a woman. There, when I was growing up, I was a teenager, and these older women, this is in the 90s, these older women, I sat in the beauty shop and they told me, don't you talk to no man unless he doing something for you. He got to be paying something. He got to buy you something. He got to do something for you to show you that he like you. You don't give him nothing. You don't talk to him unless he come with some money.
That was the hot girls. See, we always had two different types of women. And this is what's not being acknowledged. You know what I'm saying? We've always had two types of women. We had the women that were wives and we had the women that were street chicks. And she said in that salon, she was listening to the street chicks. Let's basically the money. The wives don't bring up money all the time. You know what I'm saying? Be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? They never bring it up because at the end of the day, though, they're not going to sit around here and be around anybody that they know can't provide, especially if they have a decent family background and stuff like that. And they, you know, can vet the man or allow their family to vet them properly. You know, that's the whole purpose of having community and family and stuff like that. So you can, you know, vet the people that are going to come into your life, you know, for marriage and stuff like that. And that works for both sides. You know, both the men and the women. You know what I'm saying? When the son bring his wannabe fiance, whatever, around his side of the family, they're vetting her too. So it's not just one-sided.
I thought that was absurd. Don't get me wrong, but I can guarantee you, them older women
Used to
back in
say
the day,
a wet
that
ass
is
and
what
a
they
dry
were.
wallet don't
Okay.
mix.
That's true. I don't know why that's the
30
argument.
years ago, I was being taught that.
I'm
and
agreeing
those
with
were
I'm
those
agreeing
old
with you,
women.
Laisha, on that.
Sharon,
I
what
did
are
the
you
research on that. The men were expected to do it, even if they couldn't do it, and sometimes they all work together.
What
Right.
bill was a man paying? What bill was a man paying back then when he took if a 17, 18-year-old dude went up and took a girl on a date because the average age of marriage back then was like 21, 22. When he
Right.
walked up and he was gonna pay, who bills was he paying? Because it wasn't hers, because she ain't
I'm
got
gonna
no
tell you right
fucking
now.
bill.
In the
She ain't got no
1960s,
damn bill. She lived with her
in the
parents.
Well, this is
Now, see, you know what I'm saying? SM talking sense. If we are going to go back in the day, and I definitely agree with that, yeah, they were marrying early back then. like he said, they'll start courting at, 17, 18, 19, on the way to get married at 20, 21, you know what I'm saying, in that age. Yeah. And then chicks didn't come with these high ass student loan debts like they got nowadays. Women didn't have a lot of debt back then. So yeah, I could get what he talking about. It wasn't, what's all this money you need to pay? You got to have a fucking $1 million mansion in 1925. Come on, people.
So what
Come on,
French
people.
toast is there to think about?
Come on, people. They go for the average white, black, whatever, 1960, whatever. Average people back then didn't have, $500,000 homes and shit. So, and women didn't come to the table with all this student loan debt and all this money that they owe people, and they're in credit card debt. They didn't have all that back then.
That's my understanding. In the 1960s on back, the women were mostly, I would say overwhelmingly, mostly homemakers.
Right.
A lot of them couldn't even open up their own bank accounts until, what date was that? When a woman can go and open up her
Somewhere in the 70s.
bank account.
Like the
Or even damn
70s?
vote. First of all, the men were for providers. It was actually an expectation. But my argument wasn't whether or not it was an expectation. My argument still stands that I'm granting you the argument regardless. If the men were expected to provide back then, think about the type of women, the mentalities of the women that they were compelled to provide for versus the women now. You have women that can be provided for today and still will push back on your ass.
But here's the opposite side of that. What is it that, from the woman's perspective, right? When we're talking to our grandmothers and they're not having the same conversations that they're having with us as their granddaughters, as they're having with you as their grandsons. Because what I'm trying to get men to understand.
That's the point. That means there's some lies going on somewhere.
So what's the French toast is
That's
there
the
to think
point
about?
right there. That means it's some lying going on somewhere. If your grandmother talking to you as her granddaughter a different way than she trying to tell her grandson, it's some lies going on. And that mean that the love ain't equal. So you can't trust that shit. And yeah, at this point right here, I would suggest young men wake the fuck up. Obviously, you know what I'm saying? Your grandmother trying to set you up for a clap trap. Right. Clap your finances and get you trapped with some bullshit.
Is these men are saying, oh, our grandmas were such good women. They were married women. They were this, they were that. And they're coming to us and saying, baby, don't be like me. I was miserable. Then what are we to do with that information when the man is praising this woman for being this way, but she's saying she was this way and absolutely miserable? What do we do with that information?
Your grandmama was miserable in her marriage?
I actually don't know. Sadly, my grandmother passed when she was 8.
Hold on here. Did she say she don't know her grandmother passed when she was 8? So what grandmother are you talking to, young lady? Whose grandmother? I mean, which grandmother? Your father's mother or your mother's mother? Which? Okay.
Right? I mean, when I was 8,
Why do
but
you let
what
women
I'm
sit
saying
back
in
you so
this
easy like that?
is that a lot of women specifically are saying that the mindset that is happening right now is something that has been passed down. Like, a lot of women do have their grandmothers. A lot of women have older moms, right? And they're not just waking up and saying, I'm going to be this way. They're having an old school woman in their ear being like, don't always keep you a rainy day fund for when that man try and leave or when he try and cheat. Don't give no broke man no coochie. Don't do. These are things that they came up with. They're telling us don't be miserable like them, but you guys are praising them. So what are we to do with that?
Are we talking about these 40-year-old grandmothers, 50-year-old
No.
grandmothers? Like, what are we talking about? Like,
60s,
what
70s, 80s. Hand to God, I'm telling you, this is really going on. These old, elderly women are saying, I was miserable. Don't be like me. So now what do we do with that information?
Why was she miserable?
She couldn't leave?
Couldn't leave what?
No, I'm asking.
Yeah.
It was a question.
Damn, yo,
Hold
she
on.
wanted to leave her man.
Are
because
we
she
going
couldn't-
to?
You know,
Are we
No
gonna
fault
act
divorce
like
has been around for
our
quite a while.
grandmothers did not have to be married because one, they didn't work, never worked, never had a job, didn't have much of an education. That's some of them. That was one of my grandmothers. The other one had education and a very good job. However, back in the day, you didn't leave your husband. You had kids. Where were you gonna go? You got multiple kids. Where are you going? You can't move in with your family. You got multiple kids. You got to stay with that man.
They wasn't
Also,
simping back then either.
they couldn't have bank accounts. They couldn't buy property. They couldn't do anything. They had to have a man to live a life because they couldn't stay in their parents' house because their parents weren't gonna keep taking care of them. They had to get married to someone so that they can be taken care of. Let's not act like that didn't happen.
so
And that
to
wasn't
Sweeney's
even
point-
100 years ago.
Actually,
To Sweeney's point, freedom
single-
broke. So to Sweeney's point, freedom broke the home. If that's the case,
Actually, single women were able to open up bank accounts and buy homes and own property.
When?
They've always been almost probably since like the 1920s. The only difference
Nope.
was that married women had to answer like, hey, if you were married, you had to have your husband sign off on it because he was more than likely the person who had to bear the responsibility of the debt. But a single woman could open up a bank account if she wanted to. She was not hindered to. It just so happened that most of the women back then,
1960s.
that's for women.
1960s.
That's for women who are married. Single women were always
Women, period.
No, it wasn't women. Period. You got to read the article.
Okay.
Can you share the article that we're talking about?
well, I just looked it up. Here you go. Voting rights, 1920, women gained the right to vote in 19th Amendment. Bank accounts, 1960 to the 1970s, women began to open bank accounts more freely. That's not including Black women because we know there was a lot of bias. If you was a white-owned bank, you still, even though they gave Black women the right or women the right, they still had pushback as if Black women open bank accounts
Right.
until we really got some traction on that. 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act made it legal to deny a woman credit or bank account. So 1974, they came in with a equal credit opportunity that made it okay. So it made it illegal to deny a woman credit or bank account. And then,
So
Yeah.
people could just deny me a credit card
Yes.
because I was a woman?
Right. Yeah. Definitely back in them days. Yeah. Yeah. They could.
Yes.
Not because I didn't.
Yeah.
So let's not act like
before
let's not act
whatever
like
reason they
discrimination
chose.
wasn't a thing.
before that date. Now,
The thing was that the reason why a lot of women weren't able to, they had the ability. It was never illegal for them to not open up bank accounts as single women. The problem was that single women never really had the income or the ability to a lot of the times, and they often required co-signers. So it was more difficult for women to open up bank accounts because of the financial aspect of it. So it was easy to deny a woman. So she often would require like somebody to co-sign for it. Y'all know how people felt about co-signing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So that's why
banks
they require the
used to
husband
require
co-sign.
banks used to require a husband's signature.
Right.
Yeah, if she
Threw that
was
out.
married, she required a husband's signature. But if she was single, she could get one. But oftentimes, if you're a
No.
single woman, you didn't make
regardless of
No.
marital status.
How you? No, I'm telling you right
She
now.
had to go and get married. I'm telling you, there
No,
was
she
an
did
era where
not. I'm
women-
telling you, she did not have to go and get married to open up a bank account. I'm telling
Why would they make an act? Why would they make a
Yeah.
hold on real quick. Why would they make in 1974? Why would they make the Equal Credit Opportunity Act? Why would they make it illegal to deny a woman credit?
Because people were discriminating.
because people were
Wait, he didn't even
discriminating.
finish his.
Let me finish the wording so we can understand the context of why the wording even exists. Why in 1974 did they make an act that made it illegal to deny a woman credit or bank account simply because of her sex or marital status?
Because
For this,
people-
so why would they include marital
I'm
status in the
explaining.
link?
Let me explain it.
Before this, banks often required a husband's signature. So if you
If she was married, if she was
Yeah, because the point they were making is if they were single, they weren't able to get bank accounts, and this what Sweeney's saying debunks that.
But But even if she
If
was
she had a
married,
marital
she
status,
could
if her marital
deposit
status was
funds.
married,
No, if she,
okay,
if
what
she
is
was
the
not,
could
what is
deposit
I'm telling you
funds.
what it
They
was.
should
If
figure
she,
it out.
other than
Bruiser,
married?
if she was not married, oftentimes because of the financial status of women at that time, a lot of them didn't have the income or the network.
I have back-to-back meetings. I can't.
Okay, we trying to weigh this out here because this is wild right here. So
Net worth to be able to open.
we got two different thought processes on this situation. You know what I'm saying? MS on there talking about you women could always get bank accounts. I really don't see it that way. Sorry, but I can't. That don't make logical sense to me. Because at one point, if women couldn't even, you know what I'm saying, be definitely a part of the workforce, how could they have money and stuff like that to open up a bank account? And then also too, you know what I'm saying, if by law, you at that time, if by law, technically women were the property of whatever man's covering that they was under, where it be their father or their husband, it's no way that they could get a bank account solo. Even if she was solo and didn't get married to anybody, they still would not allow her a bank account. Because at the end of the day, though, women just they just wasn't allowing women to have any type of financial, you know, stability. She still had to get on some man's covering somewhere, or some type of brothel or something. She had to get on some type of covering, an agency or something. You know, I'm sorry now. I don't, you know, and then SM, he ain't just really pulling up the stats like that. Like Bruiser pulled up the fucking stats about the situation. He still ain't pulling nothing up.
Take out loans and things like that. So for her to have that type of ability, she would often need a co-signer. A lot of people didn't just co-sign loans for people and co-sign bank accounts and things like that. So she could open up one, but it was often harder for a single woman to do that. That does not mean it was illegal for her.
Let me give you one example. What is the oldest business in the world?
Why does that matter?
Just answer the simple question.
This is interesting.
What is the oldest business in the world?
I'm a human.
And then don't require you to have a W-2 or bank account. You can get the money right in your pocket.
Prostitution.
So prostitutes in that time, there's a book you got to read. I forgot the book, but I'm gonna get the book. Prostitutes struggled. They had the capital to open a bank account, but because of their marital status, the single woman that was participating in harlotry could not open up a bank account.
What proof?
Because they couldn't substantiate where they were getting the funds
they
from.
had boatloads of money coming into the bank saying, I need a bank account so I can put my money.
So you mean to tell me if they did something illegal and then they tried to go to the bank and the bank had to ask them, where are you getting all this? The IRS would ask, where are you getting all this cash from?
Right. They still would do that to this day. If you a D boy, you call your ass in the bank. Oh my goodness. Why you think? Let's take the movie the Scarface for an example. When he went to the bank and he was depositing all that cash, he had to write dummy companies and all that type of stuff in order to justify where all this money was coming from.
So what the French toast is there to think about?
And you talking about a situation 60, 70, maybe 80 years ago where a chick, like, let's just use the brothel situation that Bruiser brought up. You know, you're using that scenario to say that these chicks coming in with all this money to some bank and they're not finna ask her what they're not finna ask this single woman back in those days where men were, you know, just single women didn't just rule the planet how they do today. You know what I'm saying? And them men weren't gonna ask her no questions because men mostly ran the banks, the brothels, the saloons, the businesses, big cities. All men mostly ran everything back then. Women were just like maybe a secretary or something. And you mean to tell me they're not going to ask this woman where she coming in, especially 80, 70, 60 years ago, and she got $2,000-$3,000 on her to put in a bank account? This single woman, and they not going to ask her that? Man, come on, bro. Back then with the mindset it was, man, cut the crap out. I don't know what SM talking about. He talking out the side of his neck.
He would have to be able to
Actually, during that era, and let me look up because I read it in the same book. During that era, IRS wasn't actually cracking down as hard as it was until they started having access to. I'm telling you, let me go ahead and if I got to keep looking.
Crack down on drug dealers at the same time.
I'm telling you, bro. How you think the motherfucking
did a lot
what's
of-
the dude name? From New York that he was
Yes.
actually
How
he
he
was
got
actually-
bopped was how he got bopped was because of he couldn't substantiate his money. So if you're doing some type of illegal activity and you go to a bank and you start depositing large amounts of cash into a bank account with no way to prove it, the IRS gonna crack down on your ass.
Well, they first got to prove that the money you have came from illegal activity. A lot
No,
of
they
is
don't.
there error. There was an error. There was an error, a small error, where people wasn't able to actually wire or people wasn't able to get paid via check. They had to get paid via actual cash or coins or whatever or some shit like that.
Right.
And you had to go and deposit your shit into the bank.
Right, but if the
So they was not able. There was a verification leak. There was a missing verification process.
No, it wasn't. IRS never missed no verification.
Then
Yes, they did. He don't know what the hell he talking about. You know what I'm saying? This is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Listen, look, they didn't dive off into some deeper shit, but the true point about this situation here is that, you know what I'm saying, these women talking about how women were so miserable back in the day, and these women are telling them that they was miserable and stuff like that. But I guarantee you, when Paw died, they got the life insurance policy.
And what the French toast is there to think about?
Cut the crap out here. They don't even understand how bad them older women that set their ass up for failure. You hoes can't even get married enough nowadays to even get life insurance policies off a dude that's gonna go out here and work himself to death for you. You know, why you think Big Mama, why you think the chick that like this chick right here, hold on. Like this chick right here talking about she was in the salon listening to these old bats and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying, about how they was miserable and stuff like that. They in the salon. Who you think paying for that shit? I guarantee you ain't coming out of their pocket. These young women being fooled out here by the older generation, because at the end of the day, though, the older generation, now they too old to do what the hell these young women doing, and they just want these young women to crash out. And that's what's going down. But at the same time, though, too, with what SM talking about, he talking out the side of his neck. You know what I'm saying? At one point, I definitely agree with Bruzy. At one point, currency worked different in this country. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't keep records and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like what we have today. The IRS was not on everybody's ass that super hard. How you think Rockefeller and all them came up with all that money like that? You know what I'm saying? During that particular time, the IRS wasn't on nobody's ass. Rockefeller wasn't paying them folks no real money. You know what I'm saying? And all that type of shit. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. And yes, at one point in time, definitely, particularly wherever you stayed in the United States, yeah, you mostly got paid in fucking coins. Well, you know, coins was either gold or silver or, you know what I'm saying, some type of, you know, yeah, you got they paper money. Damn, I can't even remember when paper money came around, so I'm not going to dive that deep. But I definitely know at one point in time, man, you was not getting paid the way that people get paid today. Checks and all this type of stuff. Even checks don't exist no more like that. You know what I'm saying? To a degree, most shit is direct deposit in today's society. So yeah, it was a totally different time. I don't know what SM was talking about. Like I say, he talking out the side of his neck. And you know, at this point with this, whether the way the topic went here, by the end of it. And nah, man, nah, dude, you wrong, bro. They was not finna allow women to have no damn bank accounts, whether she was married or single. You know what I'm saying? If a woman couldn't vote, they damn sure weren't gonna let her have a bank account. What is he talking about? And then he never pulled up any actual facts. He never tried to read off anything from and gave statistics about what, you know, from whatever entity that he could find to where the information could be valuable for us to know and look up ourselves. Man, this is crazy out here, man. But yeah, though, this is wild. So, you know, obviously from what's being told here, you know, grandma and them, you know, they was having such a horrible time, but they were so glad when grandpa died and left the life insurance policy.
And what the French toast is there to think about?
But it is what it is, though. Shout out to all my subscribers. Mad love to y'all. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like, share, subscribe button. Make sure you ring that bell to be notified whenever I decide to post things. And like I always say,
and that, my friends, is a bottom line.
That, my friends, is the bottom line.